Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to season 13, episode 16, overall 676 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership, located at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out their website, barrycullen.com, for the newest selection of new pre-owned GM vehicles, along with a great selection of all-electric vehicles and Cadillac vehicles as well. You can call the dealership at 519-824-0210 and tell them Chris Palme sent you, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been family run and operated here in the city of Guelph since 1969 and has been a proud sponsor, advertiser of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show for the past 3 years. Good evening, everyone, on this Wednesday, March 11th, 2026, and I'm looking forward to my guest tonight. He's a friend of the shows, and this will be his 5th time, and he is the TV and radio analyst for the National Lacrosse League's 3-peat world champion Buffalo Bandits. He knows the sports and the Bandits as well as anybody, and he also happens to be a Bills and Sabres fan, so we won't hold that against Steve as well. But we're going to bring on Steve right now and talk a little Bandits lacrosse and some news around the National Lacrosse League with the trade deadline yesterday. So we're going to bring Steve on just one moment. Oh, sorry, wrong one. Got it, Steve. Sorry, I didn't mean to hit the boo button.
All good. Thanks for having me, Chris. And an eventful week in the league and also with the Bandits. And we were talking before we went live about the Bandits winning back-to-back 2 weeks ago and how that has positioned them in the playoffs and how that probably affected the way that their trade deadline went on Monday.
Absolutely. And those wins against Saskatchewan, that was a 11-10 overtime game where they had, I think, a 3-goal lead, and then Saskatchewan, credit them, they came back, and then that was a huge goal by Josh Byrne in overtime. And then Saturday night to go down to Hamilton to take on a very good Toronto Rock team and beat them again 14-9. And the last, 5 years, the Bandits have had the Toronto Rock's number from what I've seen.
Yeah, there's been a couple of times that Toronto beat up on Buffalo pretty bad. But they always seem to get the better of them. And I think the bigger story between Buffalo and Toronto is I don't think Toronto has won a playoff game against Buffalo in I don't remember how many years it's been. Even in the instances where the Bandits play the Rock in a 3-game series, the Bandits have won them 2-0. I mean, they just have had their number. The Saskatchewan game felt a lot like a lot of the Bandits games. We're up 6-something at the half. I think about the Halifax game when they were up 8-5 at the half, and they ended the game with 10 goals, even though they won. Similar to this one, they scored early, they scored often and got a nice lead, and then the next thing you know, Saskatchewan's tying it late, and Buffalo's struggling to score in the second half, and then even in overtime, it takes 7 minutes to score. There have been some games where the Bandits have been scoreless for an entire quarter, or only 2 goals and a half, or both. And that makes it real hard to win. But they found a way to beat one of the National Lacrosse League's best teams when they beat the Rush in a really tight game. And even though it took overtime, that was a huge game for Buffalo to not only position themselves to go 2-0 in the weekend, but to beat arguably the best team in the league. And I had a good feeling after that game. I was talking to my colleague, John Gertler, who calls the games, and that I do color for. And I said, I really like their chances in Toronto tomorrow, because leaving here this Friday night, they're rolling right now. They're on cloud 9, and kind of the opposite, where in the first half, they struggled to break away. the second half they buried the rock, and that is what you want to see for any of your. If you're a fan of a sports team, you want to see them go out and convincingly find a way to win. And after a tight first half, the defense and Matt Vince just slammed the door, and the Bandits kept scoring en route to a 5-goal win. The Bandits struggled to score more than 10 goals before that, popping 14 in. The old adage in lacrosse, Chris, score more than 10 and hold them under 10. And it sounds so cliche and so, like, I don't know, obvious, but they finally did it. They scored more than 10. They held the opponent under 10, and that's a convincing win. So we'll see how they look Friday against Colorado. But, man, that weekend, too, a week and a half ago was huge.
If Josh Byrne doesn't score that overtime goal against Saskatchewan, and let's say they lose that game to Saskatchewan, do they make these trades at the deadline like they did yesterday? Or, Monday?
Yeah, I think it would have depended on what happened around them. Like, don't forget, Rochester beat Saskatchewan Saturday night. I actually helped call that game. Rochester was down one of their broadcasters, so I went out there and helped the Nighthawks out with that one. And the Nighthawks beat the Rush in overtime. So the Rush come to the East and lose 2 in a row. If Rochester would have lost, Buffalo might have been in that 8th spot, depending on what happened around them, being 1-1. But the goal set by Bandits general manager Steve Dietrich right from the jump was 2-0 this weekend, or I don't think this team's going to look the same, right? At some point, it becomes a business and, asset management, and that's awful to say with human beings involved. But Dietrich told Dave Buchanan, our sideline reporter, he goes, I have a duty to this organization. And the duty to the organization is to produce a winning team or to take care of our roster or assets as best possible. And part of that would have been letting some of these guys go in trades, and maybe they would come right back. You look at Nick Rose and Brad Cree, right? They can refuse the franchise tag. Toronto trades them last season. They play for Philadelphia and Calgary. They become free agents and come right back. That could have happened with guys in Buffalo that are in their young 30s and that, would have left and maybe come back. But instead, they do exactly what the goal was. They go 2-0. They put themselves in the thick of a playoff race. They don't need help to get into the playoffs now. They control their own destiny, win every game, and they can't miss the playoffs now, I think. So they position themselves going 2-0, and that's why Monday looked the way that it did with the addition of Hendricks and Resetarits. They became buyers at the deadline. We heard off the Crossbar report, Pat Gregoire and Teddy Jenner, that before that 2-0 weekend, Dietrich was ringing everybody up and kind of finding what players they might be interested in and whatnot. And then the Bandits went 2-0, and Chugger told him that nobody was taking his calls because GMs knew he was going to be calling to buy. And, they kind of put their tongue in their cheek on the podcast and said no one wants to help the Bandits win. But Chugger found a few willing dance partners to give Buffalo a little bit of a shot in the arm, both on defense and offense, to get them ready for the playoff push here.
Steve, before we get into the Bandit trades, you brought up Rochester, obviously, and they're now 5-6. They fired their coaching staff, and they brought in, obviously, Bandits' former broadcaster, Randy Mearns. Just thoughts on the moves by Rochester, and what can Randy Mearns do to this roster to get this Rochester team into a playoff spot, which I think they are in right now.
So, they started out 3 or 4-0, right? Real hot start. Then they lost 4 or 5 in a row. Then they stunned Saskatchewan in overtime. And it's like they're feeling good, right? They actually could pass the Bandits, although they were in 8th. They were 5-5, and Buffalo was 6-6. So they had the ability to get to 7-5 and pass Buffalo possibly. And instead, they lose to Calgary, and Calgary's not struggling a little bit this year to win games, but they lose to Calgary. And honestly, Chris, it was surprising. Mike Hazen has been with Rochester for so long and been a staple of that organization going all the way back, 15 years? I don't know how long he coached there, but a long time. Part of that run they had of 3 straight. When you think Nighthawks, you think Mike Hazen, even to the point where the original franchise moves to Halifax, they expand to the new form Nighthawks, and Hazen stays on as the coach. So not to say that he was a lifetime, never to be replaced guy, but the timing felt strange, especially if you're right, Chris. I haven't looked at the standings. If Rochester's still in that 8th spot, it kind of feels like the timing was weird. That said, obviously I have a great relationship with Randy Mearns. Him and I would split color for the Bandits in 2019 when he was working with St. Bonaventure. So if he had a Saturday obligation to his D1 lacrosse team, I would fill in for that game. That's what got me started. And then in 2022, I took over kind of full time as he became more focused on the Bonnies full time. Unfortunately, they let him go. The St. Bonaventure let him go from coaching their lacrosse program, of which he started, by the way. And I know how his brain works, and I know the kind of person he is. I know how well respected he is in the lacrosse community. Chris, after a game, if we were out in the parking lot, the players for the other team all came up to give Mernsey a hug because they know him. Between Team Canada, he's been synonymous with lacrosse for so long, champion in the National Lacrosse League. And man, what an opportunity for him. I'm so happy for him. I'm so proud of him. What an opportunity for him to take control. I know it's only in an interim status right now, but what an opportunity for Randy Mearns to coach in the National Lacrosse League. I think he'll be tapped for Team Canada in the Olympics. I think it'd be silly if they didn't tap his shoulder for that. I think all of his experience coaching, or most of his experience coaching, I should say, has been at the field level. Not that he doesn't have box coaching experience, but what an opportunity for Mearns to coach the Nighthawks, and I'm just so happy for him. More than anything, I'm happy for the man that is Randy Mearns and the opportunity he was given by the Nighthawks.
How good of a broadcaster was he? An analyst, where would you rank him up there?
An amazing analyst. He played the game, right? So that's one of the things that differentiates him and I. He's going to see things differently than I do because he was out there banging bodies and a part of it. So he definitely knows the game well, but that doesn't mean I haven't been able to learn from him, right? I was able to learn so much. And him and Gertz had a great chemistry. I enjoy working with Gertz, and I think we work well together too. But Gertler and Mearns, I mean, they're buddies. I mean, they did it together for so long. And even if, for those that don't know, Mearns was doing halftime. So even in games that I'm calling at half, I would step out and Mearns would take over and do a segment. They called it Halftime with Coach Mearns. And he would give his analysis on what he saw in the first half, what needed to happen in the second half. And just overhearing his passion and excitement for lacrosse and the Bandits was always fun, but also his lacrosse knowledge. His brain is wired to be a great lacrosse mind. And so I think that this is really going to translate into some coaching success for him. So,
hey, Steve, right now out of the 14 teams, I find there's only really 3 that are out of it. Philadelphia, which is a mess, Calgary, and Vegas. Vegas is 4-7. Halifax is on the fringe. They're 5-7, and they got a huge game Friday night against the Toronto Rock, and the Rock are coming off a big win against Vancouver. Out of this league this year, Steve, who have been some teams that kind of surprised you, and maybe I think Halifax has been a big disappointment out of all the teams. Yeah. Buffalo, obviously, but I think the Bandits are still going to get in the playoffs, just if they can get a top 4 seed or not.
Yeah, Halifax is a surprise on one end because it kind of felt like the winner of Halifax Vegas would keep their season alive, and Halifax did beat them. But they've been an enigma. Like, they've really struggled. They didn't win at home for how long? They kind of faced a limping Buffalo team, and Buffalo 10-8 or something like that. They couldn't score enough against Buffalo. It's surprising to see them struggle, but they're not out of it. Like you said, a big game coming up. Surprises the other way, maybe Toronto, that they have the record they do, because now after they rolled into Vancouver and punched them in the mouth, I was shocked by that game, Chris. It was 10-3 at the half or something. And yeah, Vancouver really turned it on in the second half, but it ended up being too little too late. Toronto, I think, woke everybody up when they beat Vancouver. And who went into Colorado and beat them up? Colorado got beat up by somebody too in the same weekend. It was just an odd weekend. But Toronto's a surprise, and Colorado turning it around. They got out to a slow start. Their coach kind of called out everybody. They trade for Jack Hanna, and Colorado's right back in the thick of the top 3. I believe Colorado is now the closest team to clinching a playoff spot. I don't know what happened this past weekend. I didn't follow the game as much. I actually traveled for work this past weekend, and the Bandits on a bye, so I didn't see a lot of what happened. But I knew coming into this weekend, Colorado was the only team that could clinch. So after a slow start, they're now, possibly tops in the league. And I'll tell you, when the Rush were 10-1 with 2 games in the loss column over Vancouver, Colorado, and I believe one other team had 3 losses, it felt like they were set up to coast, man. When you're up 2 in the loss column with 7 games left to play for their schedule, that feels like you've got it locked up, and then they lose in Buffalo, lose in Rochester, and all of a sudden all these teams are nipping at their heels.
Well, the Bandits have 6 games left, and they've got Colorado coming up Friday night, who spanked the Bandits 20-9 in Colorado, and I'm sure they'll be reminded by JT of that. And then I believe they're in San Diego, and then I believe they're in Saskatchewan too. So the Bandits have 6 games left, and I think these next 3 games are going to be critical to see if the Bandits can move up in the standings, because right now they're 6-6. They're in the 6th seed, I believe. With San Diego, they're tied with San Diego. So both those teams in a couple weeks will be fighting as well. I wanted to get your thoughts on the NLL trade deadline. Obviously, let's talk about the Bandits' moves at the trade deadline, getting Tyler Hendricks, a defender from Vegas, and then getting former Bandit Joe Resatera from Philadelphia for Lucas Nelson. Just thoughts on those trades, and also Lucas Nelson being moved to Philadelphia.
I think that Hendricks, we've seen the Bandits kind of try to find their defensive group that they want to kind of go with every game, right? They added McCannell, they rotate Belter in and out. Dooley's in and out of the lineup, up and down from the practice squad. I think they're searching for their established, 9 defensemen that they're going to put out there, 8 defensemen they're going to put out there every game. And adding another young, promising body. They're struggling to replace Justin Martin, Chris. That guy was a silent assassin back there. He retires young. He didn't take penalties. He'd shut somebody down, and you lose his quickness and his discipline, and just the silent assassin. He was quiet. Nobody knew he was out there, but he was just doing everything right. And not that the Bandits don't have good defenders still. That's not true, but I think they've been trying to fill that gap since he retired. And maybe Hendricks will be part of that solution, or for lack of better terms, the solution that becomes kind of their everyday player out the back door. Resatera's coming back, a little bit later in his career. The last time that he was here, he was good. He's always been a great player, but I think players like Joe Resatera and Connor Fields are elite talents in the National Lacrosse League who benefit from being the number one guy. Look at Fields before and after he came to Buffalo. He was great in Buffalo, but he was like the third option on the left side. He goes to Rochester and wins an MVP, because the ball is through his stick. He's the number one. He's the point guard. He's the shooter, whatever you want it to be. And anybody coming to Buffalo is going to be behind either Dane and Josh on their side, behind the other one on the other side. So at best, you're going to be option number 3. The Bandits have always made it work, but I think there were just guys out there who were better suited to be the point guard, better suited to be the guy. And we watched Joey Rez go to Philly and be that guy, and he's an incredible player. And now the Bandits need help on the right side. When they would put Nielsen in the lineup, I don't think he made too much of an impact. I think he was struggling to find a role off ball or on ball. And with Joey Rez, you know exactly what you're getting. You're getting a lethal shooter. You're getting a guy that can finish and move the ball really well. Nielsen, I don't know what his role was. So, there were games that the Bandits opted to only dress 6 forwards, which is very rare. 3 righties, 3 lefties. And ironically, in the game where they did that against Saskatchewan, Ian McKay got hurt, which means they were down to 5 forwards for all intents and purposes. I think that they would like to have that 4th option on the right side. So you'll have Dane, DeHoka, you'll have Buchanan, and now Resatera. And that way you can go 4 righty, 3 lefty, and your lefties can be Byrne, McKay, and Scanlon. And obviously Benesh getting cut opens up to have a right side heavy offense now instead of a left side heavy offense now. And Nielsen, like I said, best of luck, and maybe he finds a way to be a part of that the Philadelphia group. And they traded away Reardon on the other side, so they're going to be looking for offense. And Chris, maybe Nielsen's a guy that's similar to Fields and Resatera, needs the ball in his stick. Maybe the ball's got to go through him a little bit more. And if he finds that role in Philadelphia, I want to wish all the best to Lucas, and hopefully he carves out a great role for himself with the Wings. I just don't think it ever really panned out to have a defined role with Buffalo. And with Joey Rez, exactly what you're getting, and he'll definitely have a defined role with the Bandits. And at this stage of his career, Chris, I don't think he's necessarily looking to have the ball be in his stick, to be that number 1 option. I think now he'll probably be very happy to be a part of an offense like the Bandits. And obviously, if they can make a run, he'll be real excited to be a part of that too with Philadelphia's record.
Thoughts on Ryan Benesh's time back in Buffalo, and I believe Oshawa Firewolves signed him to a 1-year contract. Just thoughts on his time in Buffalo.
First and foremost, hard to find a better guy on and off the floor. Few guys in this league that I talk to. I've been doing this since 2009. I don't really call players friends. Like, yeah, we talk occasionally, but Ryan was great to me, my wife, and my kids. And there's a picture of him holding my daughter a couple months after she was born. I brought her to practice. He asked me to. He wanted to meet her. And then on my daughter's birthday a few weeks ago, I brought her to practice, and Ryan acted like they were the best friends in the world. Like he'd always known her. And, we showed her the pictures and how much, how cool he was when she was born. So she calls him to this day Uncle Benny, just from when she was a baby. So when she watched him play for other teams on TV, or when he came back to Buffalo, Uncle Benny. So she was sad to see him go. So was I. Ultimately, younger, faster, right? I mean, Ryan was scoring a couple times when he was in the lineup. I think they brought him back to see if he could help them make a run. If they were, I don't know, 10-2 instead of 6-6, I don't think we're at this point. But I think the fact that they're trying to build a roster, once again, it's like Chugger said, I have a duty to the organization. And when it gets to a point where you're 6-6 fighting for your playoff lives, you might need every roster spot. And, Benesh has been scratched a lot. And, I don't think that I think they thought it better suited to give that roster spot to Joe Resetarits or Hendricks at this point. And it's the tough part of the business. And I love Ryan Benesh as a player and as a man. And I'm sad to see him go, but all the best to him in Oshawa. And as you said, it's a business, and that's the tough side of it.
Steve, I'm going to ask you this, and you probably might not be able to say much about it, but what's the status for Ian McKay? Is there a possibility he could play Friday night against Colorado, or it's still unknown at this point?
I would think there's a possibility. I don't know. I can't speak because I don't know. I don't think it's a super serious injury. That's the best that I can say. The fact that he finished the game on Friday, this is just me speaking. This is nothing official.
Yeah.
The fact that he finished the game on Friday, I'm betting he woke up Saturday and was in a lot of pain. And if it was swollen, it was probably pretty bad on Saturday, to the point where, you know how it is. I'm not a professional athlete or anything like it, but when you sprain your ankle the day after, man, it's just like crazy. And you got to figure 12 hours after this guy gets his leg rolled up on, he's supposed to be on the floor taking shoot around. It probably just wasn't in the cards. So I definitely think I'm comfortable saying it's a possibility he plays Friday, not because I have an inside scoop, not because I know, but I'm comfortable saying it's a possibility. I mean, we'll obviously find out what the status is. I'm sure that they'll have game day rosters and whatnot, but I'm confident in saying it's not a long-term injury. And I'm confident that it's a possibility for him to play Friday, once again, not because I have any insider knowledge, just kind of what my brain is telling me, and kind of being around the sport for a while as an educated guess.
And playing back-to-back games in less than 24 hours, that's impressive. And they played two very good clubs. And I think that's going to help the Bandits going forward, because obviously they got Colorado coming up, San Diego, Saskatchewan, and like I said, they're in the battle for a playoff spot. Wanted to get your thoughts, Steve, since you were last on the show. Obviously, in the offseason, they lost Chase Frazier and Chris Kluche. How much of an impact did those guys have on the Bandits' early struggles this year, if any?
Yeah, it's no secret that like Josh Byrne was struggling to score. He is such a dynamic offensive player. We didn't see him going to the net as much. I don't know. I have no idea why, if he's banged up or if they're just kind of changing the dynamic of the offense. I do think that they missed the secondary scoring that Fraser and Kluch might have provided on a day when Byrne maybe wasn't going that well. But they still get secondary scoring. Buchanan, Nanakoke's been playing very well for like 2 months now. Tehoka's been putting the ball in the back of the net. He looks good out there. He's making good decisions. He's scoring. McKay is outstanding. We see him score. Scanlon does exactly what you want him to do out there, scrapping for loose balls. Ultimately, I think the offense was just snake bitten. and shots weren't dropping. And there was a couple times that they kind of got goalied a little bit, but we heard Kyle Buchanan say after like the fourth game of the year that playing a hot goalie isn't an excuse anymore. And there's been a couple of games where it just felt like they got goalied a little bit, but I'm happy that they scored 14 in Toronto, right? We were talking about the offensive struggles, how multiple games this year, they go entire quarters without scoring, only a couple goals in the half. That's what they need to cure. Do I think that Fraser and Cloutier could have helped? Sure. I mean, we've seen it in the past that Fraser and Cloutier were able to step up in games when maybe Dane and Josh weren't scoring as much. But to say that they don't have the talent or the guys that are capable of doing that just because Cloutier and Fraser aren't here, I think is just untrue, because they do. And now adding Joey Rez, I think that that's a completely different dynamic now of a third option to score behind Dane and Josh. You got Dane on the right, Josh on the left. Then you have McKay on the left and Joey Rez on the right. And that is no disrespect to the game that Tehoga Nanticoke and Kyle Buchanan play, because they're both incredible guys that put the ball in the net, great scorers. But Joey Rez is Joey Rez, and having Resetaritz over there injects an entirely new wrinkle into this offense. He's the kind of guy, Chris, that when I listen to our goalies coach, Anthony Cosmo, talking to Matt Vince in the morning before a game, is saying, watch when Joey Rez does this, because that probably means he's going this way. Watch if he does this, it probably means he's going that way. Joe Resetaritz is the guy that opposing teams have to plan for. And now you have Dane Smith, Josh Byrne, Ian McKay, and Joe Resetaritz. I'm confident that adding him to this offense is definitely a shot in the arm that can help them with the loss of Fraser and Cloutier. But like I said, I don't think that Fraser and Cloutier not being here was the reason they didn't score for an entire quarter against Saskatchewan.
And Steve, too, when you're the champions, not just one-time champions, three-time champions, you get a target on your back. Every team in the league, regardless of their talent or their record, is coming after the Buffalo Bandits. So the Bandits pretty well every night have to have their A game, and the talent in this league, too. So, and I wanted to speak to you also about Matt Vince. I've seen it on social media. I've heard it. Bandit fans kind of ripping Matt Vince because of his age. But if that was a younger goalie, everybody would say, oh, he's just having a little bit of a tough time. But when it's somebody that he's 42, 43, all you hear is he's finished, he's done, and get rid of him. But Matt Vince, I thought he was good against Saskatchewan, but I thought he was even better against the Rock on the Saturday night game.
100%. Matt Vince, the bigger the game, the bigger he plays. He hasn't had a great regular season in a few years, right? Like this regular season's been tough, but it's been tough for the whole team. Even in like the games where he struggled early, I thought like the Rochester game. Remember when they went out to Rochester and he struggled early and they pulled him and Orleman comes in and they put him back in. He settled down. The offense just couldn't figure it out. They couldn't get him back in the game. It was halfway through the second quarter, and I felt like Vince found a rhythm. The offense never got the team back into the game. Now that it's like do or die, there's no goalie I'd rather have in the league, even than current Matt Vince, right? Like he has proven time and time again that the bigger the moment, the bigger he's going to play. Look at him in overtime against Saskatchewan, like just slamming the door. He rises to the occasion. And for the Buffalo Bandits, the playoffs started a week and a half ago, man. They are playing playoff lacrosse from that game against Saskatchewan and that game in Toronto. And there's no goaltender I want more in the playoffs than Matt Vince. And that's not because I'm a homer. The guy's a 6-time champion. He knows what he's doing. In back-to-back championship years, he has had games where he embarrassed the opposition, gave up 3 goals in a game. Against Saskatchewan last year, gave up, 5? I don't even know what the final was. In the biggest games of the year, he embarrassed the other team's offense by how he slammed the door. Here's the other part, Chris. You talk about 3 straight championships, and I am not saying that this is the year, but at some point it's going to come to an end. I hope it's 7 years from now. You know what I mean? Yes. But at some point this is going to come to an end. And one of my biggest struggles is I go out in public, I go out to my bowling league. Oh man, what's going on with the Bandits? I'm like, I don't know. You brought the band back together. You had to bring them back together. You can't break up the band when they've won 3 straight championships, but every dynasty is going to come to an end. I certainly am not hoping it's going to happen, and I don't even think it's going to happen this year. We were talking about how they're poised to make this run to the playoffs, and if they get in, even from the 8 seed, man, look out, because they are in the playoffs, they've been known to fire up the steamroller once it gets to the postseason and dominate. And, they had 2 years ago, they didn't lose a single playoff game. Not only did they win the championship, they won game 1 against Georgia, I think, in overtime. They beat Toronto 2-0, and then they beat Albany 2-0. So if they get in, look out. So I'm not saying the dynasty is over by any stretch. And we've just spent how long talking about adding Joey Rez and how that's going to help them with the playoff push and how they're getting ready to gear up, how they're already in playoff mode. But at some point, it's going to come to an end. And when it does, people's heads need to stop exploding because you have been living high on the horse. Yes. They've been in every championship since 2019. Yep. It's been an unbelievable run.
I think some of the fan base, not all of them, I think are spoiled, and it's like what they're doing does not happen very often in sports. Right. 3 in a row is hard. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan, and I thought we were going to repeat this year, and they didn't. It is so hard to win back-to-back, let alone 3 in a row. And I think the last professional sports team to win 4 in a row was the Islanders from 80 to 83, and the CFL's Edmonton Eskimos, who won 5 Grey Cups in a row, and that was back in the 80s. So it's unbelievable, and people don't realize the National Lacrosse League, the talent, it's how competitive it is, and being the champions, you're going to have a target on your back, and every game is going to be, there's no gimme games in this league, in my opinion.
No, and you mentioned every team's going to come in and give you their best with the target on your back. But it's also like a couple years ago, 2 years ago, the Bandits were like 5-6, 6-6, and everyone was counting them out. And they went on an unbelievable tear. They hosted round 1 of the playoffs and then went on the road for at least the finals. I don't know if they were going to be on the road for the Toronto games or not. But the Albany series, they were the lower seed against Albany, and they won all 5 playoff games, like I said, en route to a perfect postseason and a championship. Just because this team was 4-6 at the time, people were counting them out. And it's like, man, you can't do that. You can't count any team out. We're still talking about Halifax finding a way into the playoffs at this point, and who knows what could happen if they get in. But, counting out the team, especially the team that's won 3 straight, I think is foolish because the league certainly isn't counting them out. No team in the National Lacrosse League is going to think that the Bandits are dead and buried at any point this year until they've been officially eliminated from the playoffs or they are officially eliminated from playoff contention. No team in the league is going to count them out. Their fans certainly shouldn't be counting them out.
I know the game against Saskatchewan was a big, huge win, but I feel the win against the Rock on the road the following night was even more impressive. I thought the game against the Rock was probably their best overall performance of the season, in my opinion.
Agreed. And Toronto's playing hot right now. I mean, they were coming in with a good record against this season before they played Buffalo, and then they rebound and they go out to Vancouver, and that is not easy to do. Vancouver's a great club. And they went out there and they punched them in the mouth. And they, 10-3 at the half, and I think it finished 13-10. So the Warriors did a good job climbing back, but Toronto went out to Vancouver and embarrassed them. And for Buffalo to go into their barn and take it to them like they did with, I agree, their best game of the year, it wasn't against the team in the bottom of the standing. It's a team they're trying to catch that's ahead of them in the standings with a winning record. So I agree with you. The Saskatchewan one was impressive, just because of who Saskatchewan is and how hard it is to beat that team. But to go into Toronto and beat them the following night on short rest and to beat them by 5, agreed. That was a huge statement game for them.
What are your thoughts on the matchup with Colorado on Friday night after Colorado has kind of come down a little bit? They're 9-4, but they did pound the Bandits 20-9. How much do you think JT and Steve Dittrich will remind the players, or they don't really need to remind them of that loss in Colorado?
It's funny when you started the question, how much do they need to remind them? I don't think they do. I don't think they're going to need to say anything about it. One, they're going to say that game's in the past. Right. They're not going to say they have an axe to grind. But yeah. I remember a few years ago, Buffalo went up to Toronto and got embarrassed, and they got mollywopped pretty good. And the next time they met Toronto, man, did they ever swing back. And, Colorado comes to Buffalo. Yeah, there's revenge on the mind, but ultimately I think for the Bandits, it's putting another win in the win column to keep on pushing to the playoff push. I think that game against Colorado was the outlier. We know that, although Buffalo was struggling that was not the Buffalo Bandits. It wasn't the Bandits' best effort, and Colorado was just a much better team and smoked them. That was Buffalo spinning their tires a little bit as they were as part of that 3 or 4 game losing streak that they went on. If the Bandits are firing on all cylinders, they don't fear anybody in the league as it is. But I think that it's with the way the Bandits have played their past 2 games and that momentum that they have with the drive and the energy they have right now and making this push to the playoffs, I'm not worried about them dropping another dud like they did in Colorado, a month ago or 6 weeks ago or however long that was. So, and Colorado knows that, but I think Buffalo is going to come out firing on Friday. I think it's going to be a sellout again, even though it's a Friday night game. I think it's going to be real close to a sellout. So the fact that they won those 2 games, man, all the energy is back around the team, around the city, and I think around the league, whether that's nervous energy from the teams around them or, everyone keeps joking about the Undertaker gif when it looks like he's knocked out and he sits back up and stares at the camera.
Yeah.
That's the Buffalo Bandits after that 2-0 weekend a few weeks ago.
How important was that bye week, or do you find the bye week might take some of the momentum away from those 2 wins?
It's tough to say. The coaches and players always want to play, but when you look at Ian McKay, if he was banged up and this is going to allow him to play and not miss another game, I don't know. I know for a fact that most players and coaches say they don't want bye weeks. They want to keep rolling. So, but I also don't fear momentum lost. Even if you're playing well, don't forget, Chris, even when you're playing well, you might have 6 days between your games anyway. Like we're saying they played their best game against Toronto 2 weeks ago, and I agree that was probably their best game of the year. Even if they didn't have a bye week, they wouldn't have played again for 7 days. So it's not like they would have been back in a rhythm the next night or, a travel day like in the NHL or the NBA. So I don't think it's going to derail momentum. I think that they are fired up. They're finding their groove. I think the addition of Joe Resetarits is going to be another shot in the arm for the offense. I don't think the bye week will negatively impact the way that they play Friday night against Colorado.
Currently, Steve, how many bye weeks are in the National Lacrosse League? Is it the same as the CFL? The CFL has three.
Too many.
The CFL I know has 3 for 18 games. So is it the same amount? 3, 4?
It's more than 3. I want to say it's 5. So it's 18 games and there's 23 or 24 weeks in the regular season. So it's and Chris, here's my if I've given you this before, you could stop me. My idea, 18 games in 18 weeks. And I understand it's arena availability and it's why they struggle to do it. I'm not saying you play every week. I'm saying that you have to play back-to-backs. So look at Saskatchewan. They played in Philadelphia on Sunday. They got stuck in the snowstorm and flew home Tuesday? Then they fly into Buffalo Thursday and play Buffalo Friday and Rochester Saturday. I talked to their coach, to Coach Keenan. I said, who did you piss off in the schedule-making office that you have 3? Nobody in the NLL plays 3 times in 7 days. Nobody in the NLL plays Sunday, Friday, Saturday ever. Not only did Saskatchewan have to play Sunday, Friday, Saturday, all of them in the East Coast as a West Coast team. None of them were at home. So it would have been one thing if they played home on Sunday and then flew to Buffalo Friday and played Rochester Saturday. But I'm of the mind that it's possible to play back-to-backs, play, Buffalo Saturday, Rochester Saturday, or Rochester Friday, Buffalo Saturday, or Toronto, Buffalo, Rochester. So for the teams out west, when you come east, you're going to play twice against 2 teams in the East back-to-back that are geographically close that make sense. And for all the teams in the East, they can do home and homes and get that in. And if they could get the 18 game schedule into 18 weeks, and every team can still have 3 bye weeks, you're just going to have 3 back-to-backs. I know that that's really hard with the arena availability, but the season used to go from January to April or May. Now we're going from November to June. And it seems long and drawn out. And I want 18 games in 18 weeks. I understand the arena availability makes it difficult. I think it's doable. And no, I don't mean that you play every weekend without a bye week. I think you just have to mix in back-to-backs and bye weeks to still give everybody the same rest and some rest in the schedule.
If you could speak to the National Lacrosse League Commissioner Brett Frood right now, besides what you mentioned, more back-to-back weeks, what are the things would you like to see from this league going forward?
I actually see Brett a couple times a year. I don't bend his ear. I'm more likely to bug Brian Lemon about rules. I've had a couple of emails with him back and forth. One of the rules that I would like to see changed is a shot block by a defender resulting in a fresh 30-second shot clock. So you go to an NBA game, there's 3 seconds to shoot. Steph Curry shoots. It gets blocked and goes out of play. The Warriors maintain possession, but there's only 2.8 on the shot clock. In the NLL, you wind the shot clock down 29 seconds, you take a shot, defender blocks it, goes out of play. Not only are you awarded possession, you get a fresh 30 seconds. And to me, it's a 30-second shot clock. If you did not register a shot on goal, shouldn't reset it. The other thing that I would like to see Brett Fruit do is we have to speed up the replays, man. They are wild. I am all for getting the calls right. I love the new replay review system. I love when officials call a major penalty so they can review it. I don't know if you saw the Saskatchewan-Rochester game 2 weeks ago. There was a cross-checking penalty against Taylor Jensen of the Rochester Nighthawks in overtime. They deemed it a major. They reviewed it. No penalty at all. So look at Pat coming in with the summer season. No penalty at all, and I think that's right. But I hate when a goal review comes in, Chris, and they look at it for 4 minutes. It's like if the rule is inconclusive or the call stays the same, if you've been looking at it for 4 minutes and you can't see conclusive evidence, the call on the floor has got to stand. If you had conclusive evidence, it would take you less than a minute to find it, in my opinion.
On average, what's the average time? Is it 4 minutes? To me, I think it should be 60 seconds. I talked to Brian Shanahan. I said 1 minute. If they can't make a decision, then the call on the field stands.
I would sign that petition tomorrow, Chris, because I'm all for it. I am just exhausted of reviews that take, I don't know what the average is. It's definitely longer than 2 or 3 minutes, though. I mean, when we're broadcasting it, we sit down, we look at our monitor, we make our untrained decision. Yep, that's a goal. No, it's not. Yep. And then we stand up and we've got 3 minutes to fill while they're in the box staring at each other, trying to figure out what the right call is. Patty's question, you think the NLL could move to a summer season? I would love it. I think it would work. You're not competing with the arena availability. I know it's been talked about a bunch. You're not competing with the arena availability. And the other thing now, summer ball becomes more of the amateurs. You wouldn't have NLL players playing for MSL and WLA, and it would be returned back to amateurs over the – look at Pat coming. I love Pat. You wouldn't have the all the National Lacrosse League players going up to WLA and MSL and taking the spots from what would be the amateurs. It would allow that summer ball leagues over the border to be more of the feeder leagues for the National Lacrosse League and development leagues, and then you would have the best box players playing in the summer. I don't know that they would ever do it. I don't know if the summer is what they would want to go to, but I would prefer it just because right now November to June is too long.
Steve, I wanted to ask you this too, and I get Pat too. Pat's watching on YouTube, and I want to say to our audience, I apologize. The show is supposed to be on Twitter X, but there's some issues with Twitter X, so it's not going to be live there tonight. So I will have to put a replay on there. But Pat, thankfully, is watching on YouTube. I personally think the National Lacrosse League should go to a 20-game schedule, 10 home games, 10 road games. And maybe even eliminate the preseason and like you said, maybe more bye weeks. But ideally for this league, I would like to see a 20-game regular season and maybe an extra game or two in the playoffs. But you don't want the season going to June either.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Is if arena availability is tough, like you're seeing games played on a Thursday night or a Sunday afternoon, it's because that's when Philly could get the rink. In a place like Buffalo, it's pretty much just the Sabres they're competing with. But when you get to Philadelphia and it's the Flyers and the Sixers, or Colorado where you've got the Nuggets and the Avalanche playing in the same building, it gets a little bit difficult to kind of have 20 games squeezed in unless they're willing to play more in the middle of the week. But we've seen even in Buffalo where they draw amazing crowds, Fridays don't even get as good of a crowd as Saturdays do because people work second shift or whatever you want to say. The league hasn't gotten to a point yet where if they put a game on a Wednesday at 7:00, people are going to come out. I don't know why. I wish they would. It's a great sport. It's a great spot, great way to spend an evening. But an NBA game, an NHL game, people don't care what night of the week it is. They're going to show up for some reason. Even in Buffalo, man, the mecca of Bandit Land, Fridays are about 17,000, 16,000 when Saturdays will sell out at 19,070.
It's similar to the CFL. The CFL, they've tried their Thursday games, they don't work. They've tried their Sunday night games, they don't work. It seems like the weekends are the best schedule, so you have to go when the fans will show up. And the NLL is, in a way, is a lot like the CFL. They don't have a big TV contract, and they also rely on fans in the stands. Unlike the NFL, where the stadiums can be empty and they're still making a profit.
Correct. Yep.
Pat does say, I love it, but I don't think the league would do it. He says, I could see 90 seconds or 2 minutes, but personally, to me, 60 seconds should be it.
At this point, 2 minutes would be such an upgrade because there's no time limit.
Okay.
And there's times I'm ripping my hair out watching them watch the same replay 46 times that on the second or third time, Pat or I can see what happened and most likely get the call.
What are your thoughts on this week's opponents, the Colorado Mammoths, and what are some keys to a Buffalo Bandits win from a Buffalo perspective?
Well, Colorado's a good team. They already showed you what they can do. We talked about them a bit. I think the keys are getting the offense going for 4 quarters. I keep thinking back to a game where they scored 10. They lost, but they went 2-6. That was their 6 goals, the most they scored in a quarter. 0-2. That was the Vancouver game. They went on the 6-goal run. They were down, 5 goals, and they went on a 6-goal run to take the lead. And it felt like they were in the driver's seat, and then they didn't score in the entire third quarter. So Buffalo's got to score in all 4 quarters, even out the scoring. I think Joey Resetarits helps with that. Get out in transition and score a couple goals that way. Score in all 4 quarters. Don't have the offense go to sleep for 15 minutes at a time.
Steve, I had Taylor Dooley on my show a couple months ago, and he seems like a real good guy. I know he's only played 4 games this year. What are your thoughts on Taylor Dooley so far in 4 games with the Bandits? And do you feel that he has potential in the future as a defenseman for this team, a defender?
I definitely think there's potential, especially with how many guys are up in age, right? Like someone like Paul Dawson, I don't know this for sure, but probably only came back because Matt Vince did. He said as soon as the season ended last year, he started working out, but he wouldn't say the retirement word until he saw where some of the other, where the other dominoes fell. I think he said on Back of the Bird, or so the ball's in someone else's court or in other people's court. So when Vince announced that he came back, I think we all knew that Dawson was going to come back. I think that it's tough right now to play defense for this Bandits team because they have so many studs that are great players, and trying to come into that defense, it's a lot of pressure. You give up a goal, Matt Vince is going to talk to you. Like every goal they go and they talk about it. So I think that these practice reps for Dooley, playing in a couple games here and there, are going to help him immensely, because I think undoubtedly a spot's going to open up and they're going to need a full-time defenseman. And I don't see why it couldn't or wouldn't be Dooley, especially with the experience he's been gaining by playing in some games this year.
Steve, I wanted to get your thoughts. Steve Ollerman, what was part of the reasons why they moved on from him as the backup goalie?
Well, they had 4, if I know correctly, that Toronto called, because when Rose goes down, he obviously missed some time, and they needed someone either to play or to back up Holochuk. So I believe Toronto made the call. And if you needed a goaltender, Buffalo was the team to call, because don't forget, you had Vince as the everyday starter, Orleman backing up, Konstantopoulos behind them as he was still playing junior last year. He's still so young, as the third goaltender, and then Shognosh, their first round pick from the draft this past year. So they had a logjam in net anyway, and Toronto had a need. So I think it was just Toronto's need meets the Bandits' surplus, and that's what happened with Orleman. I don't think there was anything, it certainly wasn't like Buffalo was shopping him around. I think this was more Toronto made the call to find a body to help out with Rose out, and they were able to find one in Orleman.
Nanacolt, do you find he's the heart and soul of this team? I don't think he gets enough attention for what he does.
The guy's incredible off ball, super physical, goes to the dirty areas. When I listen to coaches like Coach Milosky complaining about guys not being willing to pay the price and go to the middle, Nanacolt will go to the middle all the time. It's all he does. And he's incredible for that. And when you say like heart and soul, I mean, we know who gets the offense going on each side. Yeah. And that's Dane and Josh. But Tehoka, the way he's been finishing, he's been on the score sheet a bunch. Even in games when they've lost, he's been the guy. Like when they lost to Vancouver, he put the ball in the net. Like when they're struggling to score, he's still finding the net. And he's been good for those 2 to 3 goals a game even when the offense isn't firing on all cylinders. So yeah, I've been super happy watching him play because he's been really getting rewarded for the hard work that he puts in. And he's been consistent, which the Bandits have struggled to have guys consistently scoring, and Dehoga's been scoring consistently.
Who else on this Bandit team? We know about Josh Byrne and the great Dane Smith, but who else on this Bandit team this year has kind of elevated their game a little bit more?
Well, don't forget Kyle Buchanan had career numbers last year, and he's set to break them this year. So every year you think he's retiring, he's kind of saying he's done, and he comes back. And not only is he coming back, but he's actually improving on his career numbers. So that's been awesome to see. Matt Spanger comes back, not only back into the defensive role after missing like 400 days because of his Achilles, and he's scoring in transition. He's got goals in 2 of the last 3 games, I believe. Nick Weiss continues to score in transition. And that's the other thing, Chris, when the offense is kind of clunking a little bit, it's really good. It would be really good if transition picked them up. And, we haven't seen that as consistently as the Bandits would have liked either, but we've seen some transition goals against Toronto. When they get out in transition and pop a few in, that's always good to see. And it alleviates the pressure on the offense, especially when they're maybe struggling to put the ball into the net.
I have another viewer watching. He is from Buffalo. His name is Robbie Schneider. He is a huge Sabres, Bandits, Bills fan, and I'm trying to make him an Eagles fan. He has his own podcast show called the 716 Sports Blizzard Podcast. He says, "Hi, Chris and Steve. Go Bandits, go Sabres." And he also says, "I agree with Steve on the point about number 1 on the Bandits."
Awesome. Thanks, Rob, for that. And yeah, he's been consistent. He's been getting rewarded. He's been scoring goals, and there's not much you can complain about with the way that he's been playing this year.
Hey, Steve, before we wrap the show up in a couple of minutes, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Philadelphia Wings. I've been hearing rumors that possibly they could be relocated, and Montreal would be one of the spots. Philadelphia is a great sports city, but there's so many teams in Philadelphia. They got 5 major league sports teams, and they play in that, I call it the First Union Center still. I don't know what they call it now. Do you feel that this could be the next franchise in the league that relocate?
I hope not. Not just saying that, because the Wings are such a storied franchise. Like, you go back into the 90s and the Bandits and Wings were going at it, man. That was they were, they meet in the championships all the time, and those games were incredible. And there's so much history that the Wings, lost their team and they get one back. But I hope that they can stay in Philly. Maybe it'll be a story like the Nighthawks, where everybody was worried that because they couldn't find an ownership group, or there was rumors, Pagula didn't want to own the Nighthawks anymore, that they were going to be gone or relocate. And then they got a great buyer in the Seneca Nation to, an ownership group that's got tons of money and loves the sport, obviously, since it belongs to them. So maybe there's a story like that in Philly. I know that there's issues with Comcast or whatever. I don't really tend to be an expert in any of that. I hope they don't move. They definitely seem like it might be a candidate that they could be moved or sold to a new city or relocated. I just want to be on the record saying I hope that they don't, because going to games as a kid, we're talking 30 years ago, going to games as a kid, watching the Bandits and Wings play, those are etched into my memory, man. The Wings have a long storied history in Philadelphia, and I want nothing more than for them to keep that going and to become a staple in the league like they were 30 years ago, where they were a team that was, top of the standings and competing for championships, and just one of the best teams in the league.
Well, look what winning's done for the Detroit Pistons in the NBA. They've been as bad as the Sabres the last 15 years. The Pistons are now one of the top teams in the NBA, and they're selling out. And the Sabres are now selling out as well. So winning sells, and hopefully they can get that franchise going around, because it doesn't look good for the league to have another team relocate as well.
Yeah, and especially out of a city that they relocated out of from once already, right? That the original Wings went to New England, and I hope that it doesn't happen again. I want to see that franchise in Philadelphia.
If there's going to be expansion in the next couple of years, which U.S. city or Canadian city you'd like to see get a team?
So the number one city that I always say to this question is Nashville, because there are so many players I've talked to. No, there's so many players I've talked to that said, I want to play in Nashville. They said, I don't care if there is a team in Nashville, I'm going to go play there. The players would love to play in Nashville. I don't know what kind of market there is. I'm not saying that this is strictly out of emotion from conversation with players. I'm not saying it would be successful. I'm not saying it would be a good market. I'm just saying that is the number one city when I have talked to players where they're like, if there's a team in Nashville, I'm going to play there.
I was wrong about that.
And if the Predators owned them, it would be a heck of a lot easier, right? If they could convince the Predators to own a team, everything becomes easier because you're not renting the building. It's a part of the hockey franchise. You get all the marketing that comes with that and the support of the NHL club. So,
and I was wrong. I didn't think hockey, the NHL, would succeed in Nashville, and it's done quite well. Even if the Predators have had some down years, they seem to love the game of hockey, and lacrosse is very similar to hockey. So,
yeah, not as many sports to compete with either. When you talk about, they have the NFL, but there's not, not as many sports you said five teams in Philadelphia makes it tough. Yeah. But in Nashville, there's not as much competition.
Hey, Steve, as we wrap this up, we have to mention the Sabres too. What's the mood of the city of Buffalo right now? Obviously, the Bandits are still number one, but the Sabres have been playing great hockey since December. And do you feel this team is already a Stanley Cup contender? And how much does it mean to the city and the area to see the Sabres being competitive again?
I love the Buffalo Sabres. They could be 0-81, and I would watch the 82nd game. So I feel rewarded for, being loyal. It's frustrating to watch people come crawling back, but also that frustration's gone in an instant because I'm just happy. They're so, there's people, everyone's wearing Sabre stuff around the city. Everybody's bought in. Everybody's excited. It's been a long time coming. When you talk about a Stanley Cup contender, look at the way that they've played against Tampa Bay in the last couple games in San Jose. They're playing physical. They're answering the bell. That Tampa Bay game on Sunday showed how playoff ready they are. I mean, they played a bully and they got punched in the face, and it was punch, counter punch, punch, counter punch, both literally and figuratively, the fights on the ice, but then also, Tampa Bay taking a 2-goal lead in the third period, 6-4. That felt like all the air could have been out of the Sabres balloon. And guess what? Didn't matter. They were unfazed and still beat them 8-7. But the city of Buffalo, such a hockey town. They love winners. Look at the support the Bandits have, and the Bandits are a great organization and they do everything right. The Sabres for a long time were struggling to do everything right, but they're starting to do a whole lot right, and it's fun. And don't forget, Chris, there's so much crossover. Our social media director for the Bandits works for the Sabres as well. The photographers that work for the Bandits that work for the Sabres as well. Bill Whippert does photography for the Bandits and the Sabres as well. So everybody's excited about it. There's just such an energy, and it went from, I think this team could make the playoffs to, okay, if they go 500 after the Olympic break, they will make the playoffs. Well, now they've won 8 straight since the Olympic break, and now people in Buffalo have their eyes on the conference, as they should, because they're just mowing people down.
And the Red Wings, they were number one for a long time there, but they've had issues with their goaltending. And I wanted to ask you this. Buffalo really doesn't have a number one goalie right now. Can they continue to win with this goaltending committee of 3 goalies, including Alex Lyon, who was with the Red Wings?
Yeah, I mean, Colton Ellis now, the only reason he'll keep on the team is in case of an injury, because don't forget, after the deadline, you can carry as many scratches as you need to as long as you're under the cap. So Ellis would have been a roster casualty, but there's no harm in keeping him on the roster, but he'll only play in the event of injury. It's been working with the 2 goaltenders back and forth. I think Lyon's your guy. I think he's been more consistent. The other thing that I always point to with Alex Lyon is he has played in the playoffs, and the playoffs are a completely different animal. It's a different sport in the playoffs. It's almost a different game out there. And Lyon has been more consistent. UPL's been good, but Lyon has been more consistent, and he's got the playoff experience. And I'm all for going with what Boston did a few years ago with Cassidy, where it was Ullmark until he lost, and then he'd give Swayman the net, and it was Swayman until he lost, and he'd give the net back to Ullmark. And, that way it's objective. Hey, you're going to start tonight. Like, I think Lyon starts game 1 because he's played in the playoffs. If he wins, you go right back to him. If he wins that game, you go right back to him. He loses game 3, UPL, you're up, man. Time for you to play game 4. And I think that's what you have to do. It's kind of what they've done all season now. It's been every other game. Both guys have been good. I'm just ready for playoff hockey, man. It's been such a long time.
I know they have Washington Thursday and then the Bandits game Friday. It's a busy time in Buffalo. Thursday, Sabres, Friday, Bandits, and then Saturday. I'm going to be curious to see if 10,000 Leaf fans make the trip over to Buffalo, because usually the Leaf fans make it about 50-50. You think Do you think the Sabre fans will show up Saturday night with that game against the Leafs?
I think part of it is the Leafs fans would buy tickets early in the year because they could get them so cheap because
Okay.
Bandits or Sabres fans were looking to sell them. I don't know if that happened this year. Like, I'm willing to bet there'll still be a lot of Leafs fans at the game because they probably bought these tickets before Christmas, right? They were put on secondary market at the beginning of the year by a scalper or by just a season ticket holder that knows they can get $300 a ticket from these Leafs fans. But the most important thing to me is that the Leafs are nowhere near the playoffs right now. That's all that I care about when it comes to the Leafs.
Just like the Dallas Cowboys. They're the Dallas Cowboys of the National Hockey League. Hey, Steve, as we wrap up the show, it's a new segment called Ask the Host CDP a Question. Do you have one question to put me on the hot seat as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'll give you one. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Who has the best hot dog? Who has the best hot dogs in Buffalo then?
Ted's hot dogs, charbroiled, Salen's. Salen's hot dogs are a Western New York staple. That's the maker, the brand of hot dog. But if you go to Ted's, they're charcoal broiling them. So off the charcoal grill's the way.
And hopefully one day, Steve will be able to come back across the border because I do miss seeing you, John, Bud Bailey, everybody in the Bandits land. I really do miss you guys. And hopefully one day I will be able to come back across the border to see you guys because Bandits are a first-class organization, and including yourself, Steve. I appreciate your friendship. And I miss seeing John and him cracking up jokes too. He's quite funny too, by the way.
He's hilarious. I love Gertzy.
Hey, Steve, finally, where can our audience where can our audience watch, listen to the Bandits' next broadcast against Colorado on Friday with John Gertler, Dave Buchanan, who does a really good job, and yourself?
We're on WGR 550 for radio, CW 23 in Buffalo. Usually Altitude carries it in Colorado, and then all the streaming services, NLL Plus, TSN Plus, ESPN Plus. So yeah, we'll be simulcast radio and TV and streaming Friday against Colorado.
And hopefully maybe next year WGR will pick up more games because I guess they lost the rights to the Bills and Sabres. So maybe next year there'll be more Bandits games possibly on WGR 550.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I think a lot of things are still up in the air.
All right. Well, Steve, I want to say thank you so much for giving us an hour of your time tonight. And I will be definitely watching the game on Friday on my laptop on NLL Plus. I just want to say thank you so much again for coming on here, man. And I am rooting for your Sabres. And hey, we're going to have to talk football too at some point. But Steve, thank you so much. Continued success and good luck Friday night against the Colorado Mammoths.
Chris, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure to talk with you and always fun to talk about the Buffalo Bandits.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Steve. Have a good night. All right, everybody. That wraps up season 13, episode 16, overall 676 of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph. I want to say thanks to Steve Bermel for coming on here tonight, the Buffalo Bandits analyst. And I want to apologize. Unfortunately, there's an issue with StreamYard in Twitter X tonight. So if you're on Twitter X wanting to watch this show tonight live, unfortunately, there's some issues with that. So I will post the YouTube link on my Twitter X feed at Chris D. Palme, so people can watch this feed as well. Robbie Schneider, thank you so much for watching. Pat Gregor, thank you for watching. And then it was Pat that really got me into the National Lacrosse League, I think 4 or 5 years ago. And Pat introduced me to John Gertler, and John got me into a Buffalo Bandits media pass. So I want to say thank you to Pat again for getting me hooked up with this league, the National Lacrosse League. If you've never been to a game, guys, if you live in Buffalo, go to the KeyBank Center, or if you live in the Toronto, Hamilton, Guelph, Kitchener-Waterloo area, if you can't get down to Buffalo, check out a Toronto Rock game at the TD Coliseum in Hamilton. I should ask Pat what the new renovations are like. They did renovate the 40-year-old arena this year, except for the press box. Brandon Shanahan said you still got to walk on the catwalk to get up there. It's crazy, the press box up in Hamilton. So, but if you've never been to a game, check it out. National Lacrosse League, or go to NLL.com. or go to torontorock.com. And the Bandits website is bandits.com. And again, the Toronto Rock play Friday at 6:30 Eastern against Halifax. And I'm not sure if Pat Gregor will be doing that game. And the Bandits will be taking on their arch rivals, the Colorado Mammoths, who they played in the NLL finals in 2022-2023. Friday night, 7:30. Again, the game will be on radio WGR 550 with John Gerkler, Steve Bermel, and Dave Buchanan. Or you can watch it on TSN Plus, NLL Plus as well. So I'm looking forward to the games. The march to May is beginning in the National Lacrosse League, and right now the top teams in the NLL: Saskatchewan 10-3, Colorado 9-4, Vancouver 9-4, Georgia 8-4, Toronto 7-5. Buffalo 6-6, San Diego 6-6. Rochester, who just fired their coach, replaced him with Randy Mearns. They're 5-6 in the hunt. Halifax, who's been a big disappointment, is 5-7. They're still in the hunt. And then the three teams at the bottom of the standings, which I don't think will make the playoffs: Vegas 4-7, Calgary 3-9, and Philadelphia 3-10 as well. Before we wrap up the show, guys, I was in Paris, Ontario, near Brantford on the weekend at the Winter Festival Carnival, and I did an interview with a lady named Deanie, and she is the owner of the Sweet Spot gourmet cookie in Caledonia, and I'm going to play the interview with her right now. This is Deanie from the Sweet Spot, and I had one of her cookies, the strawberry Pop-Tart cookie, and it was great. So this clip is courtesy of my YouTube channel, Chris Palme Live with CDP Talk Show. Subscribe, like, and share. Chris Palme here live at the Paris Fairgrounds here in Paris, Ontario for the End of Winter Festival. I have a special guest here. Can you tell us your name?
Dina Petrocelli at the Sweet Spot.
And can you tell us a little bit about your Sweet Spot business?
I do gourmet jumbo cookies that are either stuffed or just traditional cookies. I try and do flavors that I like to eat and flavors that everybody else would love as well.
How did you come about starting up this business, Sweet Spot?
I've always loved to bake, and my kids are older, so I was looking for something to fill my time, and I thought I'd get a registered business and start it, and it's been great.
What makes a good cookie in your opinion?
I really like a cookie that is loaded with things in it, that has a different texture because there's so many ingredients in it, and also it's soft, like hard on the outside, not hard, but firm on the outside, and it can hold all the ingredients, but it has a very soft center.
Can you show us some of the cookies you got here today at the End of Winter Festival here in Paris, Ontario?
Today I have a red velvet Oreo, cookies and cream, butterscotch stuffed pecan score, a snooze, which is stuffed with marshmallow, which I made for the carnival theme, the pink pony, an OG chocolate chip, a strawberry Pop-Tart, and a monster.
Out of all these delicious cookies, which one is your most popular right now?
I would say my most popular right now is the butter tart stuffed pecan score or the red velvet Oreo.
And will you be here tomorrow from 11 to 3 here at the Paris Fairgrounds?
I will.
And where can people find your business?
I'm located in Caledonia. I'm a home-based business, so I do online orders, and you can find me at the Sweet Spot Caledonia.
Well, I want to say thank you so much for doing this interview, and continued success with your cookie business.
Thank you.
That was Dina from the Sweet Spot out of Caledonia. If you want to contact her, her cookie business is a home business. You can find her on the Sweet Spot Caledonia on Instagram. Just send her a DM. Tell her that you know Chris Palme. Her cookies are delicious, and I had one of her strawberry Pop-Tart cookies as well. And I want to give a shout out to Canadian Events, who put on this Winter Carnival Festival this past weekend at the Paris, Ontario Fairgrounds just outside of Brantford, and the Garlic King too. If you like great garlic spread, check out the garlicking.ca. Shout out to Jared as well. So yeah, if you like cookies, you like garlic spread, or even a butter tart festival that's coming up in Paris in May, please check out all Canadian Events as well. Again, I want to say thank you to Steve Bermel, the Buffalo Bandits radio and TV analyst, for coming on here tonight. And thank you everyone for watching this show on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram. Unfortunately, there was an issue with StreamYard and Twitter X, so I will put the YouTube video feed on Twitter X so people can watch it as well. And hopefully they will get this issue connected as well. And let's see, we got some more comments here. Pat Gregor, TD Coliseum looks fantastic now. That's great, Pat, but they didn't renovate the press box. I really don't like going up that catwalk. And Brian Shanahan, we talked about it the other night. Brian said he almost had to do play-by-play because one of the guys does not like heights like me. So I really wish they had put an elevator going up to that press box. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about it, but I don't like the heights up in that arena as well. And Pat Gregor, yes, I will be in Halifax with Jenny and Ashley Docking. That's going to be a good game, man. Halifax is 5-7. They're desperate to get into the playoffs, and the Toronto Rock, they're battling, trying to head off Buffalo. Toronto still has a chance to be the number 4 seed too. So I really think the Rock Halifax game and the Bandits Colorado game are going to be the 2 games of the week. So I'm going to try to have to watch both of them. I believe Halifax is an hour ahead of us. So the game is 6:30 here and 7:30 there, I believe. And then the Buffalo Colorado game is at 7:30. But really, I'm going to be honest, the National Lacrosse League right now, every game now between now and the end of the season, which is what, another month or so, is going to be like a playoff game. So I expect all the games this weekend to be great as well. And I really hope Steve's right about Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Wings, the new ones, haven't done very well there. And I like to see a team in Montreal, but I think Philadelphia, if they can get the right ownership group in there, and maybe play in a smaller arena too. The arena, I think they play in the Philadelphia Flyers arena too. So maybe they would need to move maybe even a little out of the city, maybe Lehigh Valley. But we'll see. Steve thinks Philadelphia will be a long-term solution as well. So what time is your broadcast, Pat? I believe it's 6:30. And I'm hoping one day they'll have a TSN pregame show for the National Lacrosse League as well. But Pat, thank you for watching. Robbie Schneider, thank you for watching as well. And I do again apologize for the technical glitch with Twitter X tonight as well. And I'm hoping to have this show on TikTok as well. So I'm learning how to get StreamYard to partner up with TikTok, and hopefully we can get this on as well. My next live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show to be announced. I am working on more guests for this weekend and hopefully next week. So to be announced. And the Small Talk podcast, we're going to try, Marlene Sharp and myself are going to try to do a show at the end of March as well. And the Argo Bounce podcast show with Nick Small, hopefully he'll come back again for his 4th year. We will start that up in probably the end of May, beginning of June, when the Toronto Argonauts open up training camp here in Guelph as well. And again, I want to say thank you to Steve Bermel, and thank you to everyone watching this on live stream and on my audio platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and wherever podcasts are available as well. And as we wrap up this show, guys, as always, Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show is brought to you by the folks at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership. Right now, the federal EV rebate is back. You can get up to $5,000 rebate on the purchase of your new Chevrolet EV. More details are available at barrycullen.com or just pop by the dealership. Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Tell them that CDP sent you as well. Or you can give them a call at 519-824-0210, or you can email them at info@Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership. And Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership has been a proud sponsor of the show for the last 3.5 years as well. The Cambridge District Humane Society on Saturday, April 11th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Cambridge Newfoundland Club is hosting a fundraiser, and it's located at 1500 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. They're having a Prohibition Speakeasy fundraising event, 1920 themes. Tickets are $75 a ticket, and you can purchase your tickets at cambridgehumanesociety.org, or you can get them at 1650 Dunbar Road in Cambridge, Ontario. Kat or Zach can assist you, or you can call the Cambridge District Humane Society at 519-763-7722 extension 0. That's sorry, pardon me, I made a mistake. 519-623-7722 extension 0. And again, you can get your tickets through cambridgehumanesociety.org. Yours truly already bought my ticket, and I look forward to this event as well. And if you're a business and a company and you would like to donate a prize for the Prohibition Speakeasy fundraiser on Saturday, April 11th, please email me at cpame19@gmail.com or DM me on my social media pages as well. They are looking for prizes for their silent auction as well. And there might be some Buffalo Bison's tickets available, and also some passes to the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame, which I have helped facilitate as well. So if you're a business and you're looking to help out, please consider donating a prize for their silent auction, and please see me as well. And if you're looking to adopt a pet, check out the Cambridge District Humane Society, their website, cambridgehumanesociety.org. All the pets that are up for adoption, their profiles are available there. And remember, you can't buy happiness, but you can adopt it at the Cambridge District Humane Society, where I am a volunteer twice a week and a fundraiser as well. So if you're looking to adopt, please check out the Cambridge District Humane Society, and hopefully we'll see you at the Prohibition Speakeasy fundraiser again on Saturday, April 11th, 2026, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the Cambridge Newfoundland Club at 1500 Dunbar Road in Cambridge. And that is about it for tonight's show, guys. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching this show, and I'm hoping to have some more guests confirmed for next week. And it's hard to believe I've done in 6 years between this show, the Argo Bounce podcast show, and the Small Talk podcast, I've done 751 shows and over 1,500 people I've interviewed virtually or in person as well. So thank you so much to all my guests that have come on here, and to everyone for watching this show and listening to it on my audio platforms as well. And thank you to the National Lacrosse League. And I really think everybody should check this league out. Every game is competitive, and it's a little bit of hockey, a little bit of basketball, and a little bit of football. And these athletes don't get enough credit as well. So I'm going to hopefully try to get some more guests on from around the National Lacrosse League here on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show. And that is about it. Oh, before we wrap this up, the World Classic Baseball, Canada 7, Cuba 2. Canada wins 7-2, so Canada advances to the semifinals. I'm not sure who they're playing. It could very well be the United States as well, but regardless what happens, Canada's won a couple games in the World Classic Baseball. They should have beat Panama, but they won today against a very good Cuban team 7-2. So World Classic Baseball is going on right now, and I'm really looking forward to Canada's next game as well. And that is about it. Again, thank you to Steve Bermel, and look forward to the National Lacrosse League action this weekend, specifically the Halifax-Toronto game, 6:30 Eastern on TSN, and then the Bandits-Colorado game will be on WGR 550, CW23 Network in Buffalo, and on TSN Plus and NLL Plus as well. I hope everybody has a great night, and we'll see you back here soon with another edition of Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, brought to you by our friends at Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph. Have a good night, guys, and we'll see you soon here on Live with CDP Sports and Entertainment Talk Show.